Hi, everyone, and welcome to our podcast and webisode series called If You Don't Mind Me Asking, where Lucy and I, Dan, ask as many questions as we can to our guests. Usually, I think we're averaging about 3 a session at the moment, about their lived experience as persons with disabilities. So Lucy and I are both here working from the Business Disability Forum. And Lucy, over to you.
So it's obviously always a pleasure to do these podcasts and webisodes, but it's not every week we invite someone along who's done a TED Talk. I'm like waiting for a woo. And actually, it's even more exciting when it's one of our colleagues at BDF. So we are delighted to welcome Chantel Emery, Advice Service Officer at BDF. Hello, Chantel, and welcome.
Hello, Dan and Lucy. Thank you so much for having me here. It's lovely to be here.
No, literally, it is our pleasure. So why don't you introduce yourself a little bit to our audience? Tell us a little bit your background and start us off with your story, I suppose, in many ways.
Perfect. I'll try and make it short and sweet and not too long so we go over the 20 minutes. So I will start off with when I went studying at uni. I think that's a good place to start. I've always had a passion to help people, but I wasn't quite sure just what I wanted to do. So initially, I studied psychology. I did undergrad in psychology, and then I went and studied my honors in psychology, and I really liked it, and I really enjoyed the psychometric assessments, and I thought this is something I would like to do. So I went and I specialized another 2 years in that, and eventually I was able to write my board exam, did that, and started working. I tested my internship in career guidance and school readiness assessments, and I moved to the UK. I was living in London, and I was working at a big company that does also psychometric assessments, but they were doing it for career development and selection and development. So it was a completely different and new experience, and I absolutely loved it. And I went back to South Africa. That's where I'm originally from. I probably should have started with that. Went back to South Africa, and I was working as a psychometrist, and my life changed completely. I was involved in a car accident, broad daylight, no drinking and driving, a day after Christmas, the only car on the road, and it was like a freak accident. We were driving down the road. Someone looked like it was coming into our lane. We swerved away and hit the only tree on the sidewalk. I instantly broke my back. I dislocated my spine is what they said it, but breaking my back. And I was luckily, I had a really good hospital plan. So it's not exactly the same as it's here. In South Africa, you actually have to have like medical insurance, and there's different levels of medical insurance. And the one I decided was really good hospital plan, because I didn't really think about what if I break my back and I have to learn how to walk again. So I was in hospital, everything was going well. And then I couldn't go home because I had to go and learn how to sit up. And first of all, because in hospital, they don't teach you that after you broke your back. But I had to learn how to get dressed and make your bed in a wheelchair and all these different things that they throw into the mix. And I went and I had to go to a government rehab, which was not on the same standard as anything that you think about government here. If you complain about the NHS, you should go to South Africa and see what happens there. I suppose I was really fortunate. I had lots of support from my parents and my friends, and my parents helped me to buy a new car. And the first thing I wanted to start doing was go back to work. And unfortunately, because I broke my back and I was in a wheelchair, my work said I won't be able to come back. And it's not because I can't do my job, it's just because they thought, I won't be able to do my job. And when I was ready to get back, they already found someone else to do my job. So there I was, willing to work, and I don't have a job. And I experienced firsthand how difficult it is to apply for positions in a wheelchair and not getting the callbacks. And then I decided, well, leave off that I'm in a wheelchair and see if I get the callbacks. And I did. And then at the end, just before the day of the interview, I'll leave it to the last minute phone and say, I just want to make sure that there's no stairs and that you're accessible. And usually the answer was, I'll get back to you. And if they do come back, it was always, sorry, the position has been filled, which was, was really, really frustrating. So then I sent my CV absolutely everywhere. I was desperate. I was, I would take what I could get. And I started working at a recruitment agency. They called me in and I thought, oh, this is going to be a job. And then it was actually a job for them. And I thought, well, I've always worked with recruitment agencies, doing the selection and development of candidates. And I thought, well, I can definitely, I can definitely do this. And I started working there, and it was a completely different experience. It's not like the typical recruitment agency that we have here. So there it was, you find a top talented candidate and you sell it into businesses. So it was a lot of research we had to do. Like in my areas was also mining, petrochemical and chemical, and I've never done anything like that before. So it was a completely new experience. So lots of research, managed to do it for about a year, actually started really enjoying it. And then in that year, I met a lot of people with disabilities. And I thought, well, this is like the perfect opportunity. Some of them exactly like me, have qualifications, willing to work, but they just don't get the opportunities to do so. So I went to my employer and I said to them, how about we do this for people with disabilities? So we take top talented people with disabilities, sell them into businesses. And they said, no, unfortunately, that doesn't fit into their business model. So there I was thinking, okay, what do? I really want to, it feels like I really need to do something for people with disabilities, and I feel like I can have a voice for them. And I decided to go to our competitors and offer them exactly the same thing. And they were over the moon. And I started working there soon after. And while I was working there, I realized that it is not about just recruiting people with disabilities, because we managed to do that and place people with disabilities, but they didn't stay for very long. And the reasons was usually not because of the job. Usually it was about managers that they're working with, or the the colleagues that they're working with, and it wasn't really the job itself. So I started doing disability awareness training. I first did it for all the consultants in the branches, because I thought they have to do that when they recruiting people with disabilities, and then sell it to the agencies as well, or the businesses as well. And I did that for a while, and I decided that this is actually really what I wanted to do. And I started my own business doing exactly that, going big to corporate companies, helping them recruit and retain people with disabilities.
That's awesome. Yeah, it sounds like there was a real sort of culture there of, well, from what you're saying, the culture wasn't quite ready in a way for that sort of inclusion. So yeah, there was a need there, but didn't seem like the message was really getting through to other colleagues at all. Is that something you think was sort of like is fair to say about what it was like in South Africa?
Absolutely. And I would also say like a little bit more about the culture of people with disabilities. Often in South Africa, it will see like, maybe you sinned, or your forefathers sinned, or someone sinned, and that's the reason why you've got this disability, or that's the reason why your kids have disabilities. So there is a lot of work to be done with, cultures as well, and see how you change the perception. I definitely saw a change, because I did it for about 5 years. I definitely saw a change, but there was so much more that still could have been done.
Yeah. I mean, and it obviously sounds like disability has sent you off on a completely different path from what you're doing previously. But no, that isn't the thing that defines you. No, family's really important to you too. So I wonder if you could tell us a little bit more about them as well.
Yeah, absolutely. So I met my husband just after, like a few months after, probably about 10 months after the car accident. And it was also a friend of a friend that said, you have to go to this restaurant because the people can, know how to handle people with disabilities and people in wheelchairs. And I thought, well, in South Africa, you don't often hear of that. So definitely go to this restaurant. And my husband was the restaurant manager. Needless to say, like a few months, yeah. So yeah, that's a different story. But needless to say, when we got married, it was like a 3-for-1 package. He's already had 3 children before we got married. So a boy, Josh, Justine, and Danica. They were 10, 9, and 8, so really close ages. So it was an instant family. And we decided, well, let's have another one. And we had Scarlett, and she was so cute and a little firecracker. So I'm really close to my brother, and I can't imagine my life without him. I do have stepsisters that's a little bit older than me, but my stepsisters were really close. And then it was me. And then, my brother and myself were really close. And I said to him, well, let's have another one. And he said, well, no, I don't think that's a really good idea. And and to this day, he doesn't let me live it down. We did have another one. And every time we went back for a scan, they said, oh, there's only one. And then there was, oh, there's only two. Do you have twins in your family? And the third appointment, I remember clearly, it was the 10th of April. And the doctor went with the sonar and you could see 3 little heartbeats. And I don't think my husband spoke for like a month after that. Scanned into silence. And yes, the doctor said, like my husband still said, doctor, it's not April Fools. It's the 10th of April. And he was like really stern Afrikaans gynae. And he just said, no, I won't joke about these things. So there I was. All of a sudden, it's, it's completely different. A person with a disability, first of all, it was really difficult to find a gynae that could assist me, because I did try and do like lots of research of gynaes that can help people in wheelchairs with spinal cord injuries, and I couldn't find. Mine I did find, but he had only like one person before, and it was also not a spinal cord injury. She was in a wheelchair though. So not lots of experience, unfortunately, in South Africa. I don't know if it's not talked about, but so I had the 3, and then the day that they were born, they decided to come really early. I just didn't feel well the night before, and I still remember wetting the bed 3 times, and we had to change all the bedding, and it was just, I have to catheterize, so I don't know when I need to go to the bathroom. And I just thought, well, maybe the babies are lying funny, and that's what's happened. And I went to the bathroom the next morning. That night I first went and I put a really big nappy on, and I still remember thinking, I don't have to wake up until tomorrow morning because there won't be any accidents. And then the next morning I woke up and I just didn't feel well, and I thought, let me go and get ready. And then when I'm ready, my husband, because he was at work, can take me to hospital. It was only myself, Josh, and Scarlett at home. Josh was only 13 at the time. And I went to the bathroom and I took off my nappy, and there was the first baby already. So as you can imagine, it's something like you see on Discovery Channel. You think it's really not possible. But I was so shocked, and I was calling Josh to come and help me. So Josh ran in. Eventually, he was sleeping really late because the kids stayed up all night. Scarlett had to go and wake him up. So he rushes in and he rushes out and screamed, I don't want to be a doctor. And I had to call him back. I had to call him back really calmly and said, I need your help. And I just, I remember thinking, I need to stay calm or else he won't be able to help me. And I need to know what's happening, because I can stand a little bit, but only if I hold on to something. And I was holding onto the windowsill, taking the nappy off when everything happened. So he came in. He probably had the shock of his life with everything he had to see. And I asked him if he could please just hold the baby so I can feel where's the others. And he did. And as I put my hand down there and I took it away, it was just like a waterfall, and Bradley slid across the ice cold floor. And I just remember Josh saying, he's hanging from his umbilical cord. And it was Daniel hanging upside down from his umbilical cord. And I don't know how we managed to do it, but we managed to sit down, and he passed the babies to me, and we had to phone the emergency services. Long story short, my husband came home a few minutes later. We had to wait 45 minutes for the ambulance to arrive. My dad also arrived, and he took Bradley to hospital because the umbilical cord snapped, so he could take him to hospital. And we was waiting for the ambulance to come, and eventually they arrived, and they can only take 2 babies at a time. or 2 passengers at a time, even though we were really, really tiny, but it was smaller than a block of margarine, a big, big block of margarine. So they weighed between 805 grams and 1.1 kilograms. So really, really tiny. And yeah, so rushed off to hospital. I felt like a celebrity when I arrived there. All my friends and family were waiting for me. And I just remember getting there and like wave, and into the room. And the doctor said to me, there's another baby. And I said to him, no, it's not possible. I had the 3 at home. And it was really high up where I had like a little bit of pain still. And he just pressed on it and boops, there's Harvey, our hide and seek champion. He just arrived, but unfortunately he was blue when he was born, and I just remember my heart sinking and thinking, he didn't survive. And the nurse ran out, and as she started running, he started breathing by himself. So we had a really long experience in the NICU. So the nurses and everybody started becoming like family for us. So yeah, family is really, really important for me, when it comes to kids and everything. And I think that's also the reason why we ended up in England. The boys, we started noticing Bradley passed away about 2 weeks after that. So because he fell, he had blood clots that went through his brain. So we always think that, he had his job to come and do on earth, and we are religious, so the church was absolutely packed. And we always think that, he came here, he did his job, and that's why he's not here anymore. So, like, even if it feels like a big loss for us, it feels like it has, his purpose has been done.
I wanted to say that obviously the loss of Bradley, and as a parent losing a child, it's not something we want to gloss over, and in case our listeners think that we don't care or whatever, but just to say, actually, grief in all sorts of aspects we are looking to cover in other ways moving forward at BDF, because we think it's a really important topic, and relating to disability as well. And I know that we're hoping to get you back to talk about this in more detail. So I don't want people to think that we've just gone to go and kind of been dismissive of that. So thank you for sharing that, because I know that's not necessarily an easy thing. But one thing I want to ask you around is your boys. So I think it's Harvey, Gabriel and Daniel in particular, and how they are. And I think it's fair to say they've got quite complex needs going forward. Can you tell us a little bit about that? And then I've got another question for you.
Perfect. So so they, because they were born so early, and I think because they, like all the traumatic birth experience, everything contributed to, initially they said it was the developmental delay, and we could see something was seriously wrong. They weren't sitting like other babies would do that age, even if you correct the age and put 3 months, at 3 months in, they were just not developing like other kids would. So we decided that we really needed to find the care for them. And in South Africa, we had a neurophysio that we were visiting, and the physio said to us, she knows in the UK that they've got, like a whole team working with kids with special needs. And my husband and myself looked into it, and we made the decision the next Monday to pack. And 6 months later, we arrived here with our kids. 3 boys, and Scarlett and Josh were still on the way. The daughters decided to stay with her mom. And yeah, they have really complex needs, but we only found it after we came to the UK. So they have severe cerebral palsy. Each 3 of them, obviously they're completely different, have different epilepsy, and they've got different cerebral palsy and personalities, and they look a little bit similar, 2 of them. But Daniel has a shunt as well, but just contributes to, he's probably had about 8 operations, brain operations, where you had to revise the shunt. So they definitely keep us on our toes.
And as a mother, I say this, and this is a horrible question I'm going to ask you now. So but we've spoken about this, so you kind of know it's coming. I suspect you get kind of a lot of pity from other parents in particular. Oh, you poor thing, how do you cope? Or I don't know how you do it. And I think in many ways it probably comes from a good place. But actually, I think if you've had that 3 or 4 times a day, it actually becomes quite insulting, actually, and quite hurtful, I'd imagine. But how do you find those kind of reactions from people? And do you get much of that, I suppose, is the question.
You're absolutely right. Every day. Like people say, I don't know how you do it. You are right. I think it probably doesn't come from, I don't know how you do it, but it actually come from like, wow, I don't know how you do it. But, you know, we don't really take it too personally when people ask like that, because you don't really know until you've been put in that position. You don't know how you will act. And for us, you know, we've got a whole mindset of being grateful. And we also teach it to like our kids, all our kids. And we started doing something in lockdown where we went like, I'm grateful for every day, and do like a 1 minute video on Facebook or, you know, over social media channels where the family gets together, quickly tell us what you're grateful for. Everybody tells what they're grateful for today, just to create that habit to see like, I'm grateful for something. Because in the morning you have to really think like, I must remember to think what I'm grateful for today, for tonight's you know, for tonight's video. And we started doing that, and we could really see like a change even with us as a family, as well as, you know, as well as our kids.
Awesome. Has that carried on after lockdown as well, Chantel, or is that something you were storing up some good ones, taking a break and then bringing them back?
We do. We did like the first lockdown, took a little bit of break, came back again, and then you start missing it. You know, like you think to yourself, oh, I want to tell it, because it is so nice going on Facebook and you see a reminder of a year ago, 2 years ago, this is what I was grateful for. You know, I was going to CrossFit this morning, and on the way back, I saw the most beautiful sunrise, and I thought, tonight, that's definitely what I'm going to be. I'm grateful for today. So we're still doing it. We started another 100 days I'm grateful for. And, you know, like we do it whoever's available. So sometimes it would be just my husband. Sometimes I would join in, and sometimes it would be Scarlett as well. So the other kids is in South Africa at the moment, so they're not here. But we do try, and even, you know, if the boys are still awake in that time, we also get them in the video. Even if they just make noises, at least they're there.
Yeah, that's brilliant. Thanks ever so much, Chantel. I think we're coming to what's going to have to be the close. I think we could definitely get at least another couple of episodes out of chatting to you. But one of the last things I'm going to ask about was just sort of if we already said that you've got the TED Talk underneath your belt. So where would our listeners be able to find you?
So Facebook, you're more than welcome to make friends with me on Facebook. So you can just find me Chantel Emery on Facebook. I am on LinkedIn, and I am on, and you can watch my TED Talk on YouTube.
Wicked. I think we'll have to include the link to that, won't we, Lucy?
Yeah, I was going to say we'll include a link to that, and you can get the full details and everything within that. And it's a fantastic, and you do it with your husband Rob. I know that TED Talk, and you're quite a double act. So yeah, it really is fantastic. And it's like there were about 4 or 5 more questions we didn't get time for today, so we might have to do a Chantel Emery part 2 kind of thing on this one, maybe in a future series. But Chantel, thank you ever so much for joining us today. A fascinating story, and again, thank you for being so open and sharing what is an incredibly personal story. And we're definitely having you back in one way, shape or form. So thank you for your time, and thank you everyone for listening.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for listening. You can find future episodes on major streaming platforms. Search Business Disability Forum or at businessdisabilityforum.org.uk and search podcasts. You can also watch the series on our YouTube channel. Search for Business Disability Forum. Please do share and leave us a rating. Business Disability Forum is the leading business membership organisation in disability inclusion. We work in partnership with business, government and disabled people to remove barriers to inclusion. businessdisabilityforum.org.uk